Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Burning Questions podcast. We have the full team back. New year, we are all here. Lovely to have both of you. It has been a while since I've been on. A very busy Christmas. Tom, thank you very much for holding down the fort. Andy, it is good to have you back on as well. Let's start with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, my friends. It's good to be back as well. It's been a while for me. Excited to speak some chips and FPL with you guys. So let's get it going.
Good. If someone in the chat could just let us know that all is coming through okay, that would be fantastic. Tom, how are you?
Personally, very good. FPL wise, not so. But I'm probably going to shoot myself in the foot again this week by captaining Palmer. Unless you talk me out of it.
Look at this. Like, what has happened? Since we were last on together, we're all doing okay. And now look at it. Red arrows across the board. It's just, we've all got too much Chelsea in our teams, is what's happened.
Yeah,
we've all backed Chelsea too
bro.
much.
Yeah.
And Andy has then listened to Tom and I talk about Chelsea too much. And he has brought too much Chelsea into his team. And it has meant red arrows across the board for us for the past few weeks. Let's start off. Let's get our scores out of the way. That is Tom's team for next week. I'm going to go first because I got the lowest this week. It was only by one, but I did get the lowest. I got 57 points this week. I decided to roll and was accepting a red arrow. Was part of the reason I rolled. I knew it would be that case, but I quite like my team going forward. And yeah, where did we get let down? The two Chelsea attackers, basically. Enzo Fernandez with 1, Jackson with 2. How Jackson hasn't got any returns over the past couple of games, I do not quite know. But 57 points all out. Munoz could have had something. Gabriel Raya had their clean sheet wiped out. But to be fair, the positive was I kept João Pedro and started him. And I kept Bruno Fernandes and started him. And they both came in returns. And then I've got Ahmad first on the bench, who maybe I should have played over Enzo, but realistically was getting nowhere near my starting 11 this week. So that is what it is. And at least it means people are buying him and he's not going to drop in price over the next couple of weeks. So 57 for me, a red arrow from about 70k to outside the top 100k. Andy, I think you were next. 58, beat me by 1.
Yeah, earlier in the pod you said we all were flying. I have no idea what you're talking about because I've been having a terrible season the whole time. But I would like to say this. I think I've had pretty decent game weeks in the last 2-3 game weeks. I just haven't shot up the ranks because I captained Palmer over Salah 2 game weeks ago. So that was really unfortunate. Even so, I had a gray arrow, which goes to show I had a good team that week. Obviously, the Chelsea is the problem. I don't know why I ever brought in Enzo. He's a problem. I need to get rid of him. And I'm probably 1 or 2 transfers behind from the so-called template, as in Crystal Palace assets, and lacking transfers as well. So it's going to be very interesting how I navigate the rest of the season. I have some short goals in mind, Harry. For example, I want to get into the top 1 million, hopefully within the next, let's say, 5 game weeks before the blank 29. So little short-sighted goals, and then by the end of the season, try to push with all the chips left to play. But definitely some dilemmas in my mind in terms of chip strategies as well. Like, do I need to go different for the sake of going different, and stuff like that. So lots to discuss on my team.
I mean, I just look at your team and like it hasn't worked out this week, but I don't see a problem really with your team at all. If you've got just one transfer, we can talk about it at the end. But I mean, like, if you put Rodgers in for Enzo there, like a João Pedro, Isak, Jackson front 3 is absolutely fine. A midfield 4 that is Gordon, Salah, Rodgers, Palmer is also absolutely fine. In defence, Trent, double Arsenal, and then Pickford in goal. Like, you're absolutely fine there. Maybe you don't have a Munoz, but you're playing double Arsenal instead of that. Maybe you don't have a Sarr, but like you've got Rodgers and Gordon instead of that. It feels like one of those that me and you combined, we may be on the wrong end of some 50-50s over the past couple of weeks, but doesn't necessarily mean that we've got the 50-50s wrong in terms of decision making. Like, it could easily swing back the other way, although Palace against Leicester this weekend, next midweek. Yeah, I know what you mean. Anyway, Tom then got one more than you. Tom, you ended up on 59 this week.
Yeah. I got the main decision. The positive was I played João Pedro over Munoz, so that worked out. But apart from that, it was a bit of a car crash, really. Jackson was rubbish. Semenyo just gets into all the positions and has no end product.
Yeah.
Stanya disappointing. Palmer outscores Salah. Should have captained Palmer.
Is that what you're going to use to confirmation bias that you're going to do it this week?
Yeah, he's done it twice out of the last 4 weeks, I think. I think, I know he has, but
someone's checked.
Yeah, Gordon over Christmas it was up to 400k and then back down to basically $1 million. Gordon, the bomb positive, I suppose. I went for him for Saka a few weeks ago, so that paid off. Nice. But apart from that, pretty rubbish.
Although Gordon's goal shouldn't have stood. You're lucky. Gordon owners are lucky, aren't they, Andy?
No, I think by the letter of the law, it's a goal.
Because weren't you trying to bring him in, Harry?
Yeah, but I didn't. So yeah,
that's why.
Exactly. I should have done, but now I'm looking at something a little bit different. But we will talk about that. What we're going to start off by having a look at is we're going to start off by having a bit of a wider view. So what we've got first of all is the fixtures over the next between now and game week 28. The reason we're looking at game week 28 is because game week 29 is the first blank of the season. It's caused by the final of the EFL Cup. Of course, we had our first result last night in the first leg between Arsenal and Newcastle, which Newcastle won 2-0, which does change predictions quite a lot. And actually quite a lot of thinking has changed just based off that one result last night, because it means that I think it's about a 70% chance that Newcastle go through is what the odds are of that now. So we're going up until game week 28. We'll talk about the blanks, we'll talk about doubles, we'll cover a little bit of chip strategy in this episode as well. But let's just have a look at a bit of a broader view. We're then going to break this down into 2 groups of 5 to have a look at maybe there's some swings coming. I know, Andy, that was something you wanted to have a look at and we will discuss that. But I want to come to you in just a moment to talk about a few teams that you potentially are looking to target over the next few weeks. It's no surprise that Crystal Palace are top of people's radars at the moment. If you're looking at Eze, if you're looking at Sarr, if you're looking at Munoz in defence or Mateta up front, they are top of the Fantasy Football Scout fixture ticket over the next 8 game weeks. Fulham are in second. There are a few more difficult games in there. They've got Manchester United and Newcastle, but then a lot of nice games, including West Ham and Leicester in the next 2. Brighton are high up. You've got Manchester United now starting to be high up, and actually lower down the list, you've got Bournemouth if you're owning Semenyo. Manchester City are bottom of the fixture ticket over the next 8 game weeks. Although Brentford and Ipswich in the next 2, they've also got Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool, away at Spurs, away at Forest, and away at Brentford in that run. So despite Haaland potentially maybe being a little bit of flavour of the moment, he is bottom of the fixture ticker. Let's start with that, Andy, because I know you've mentioned and thought about Manchester City as a bit of a sort of differential and a way to maybe do something a bit different. They are bottom of the fixture ticker here, but they've won back-to-back games quite comfortably. Do you have any inclination to go back to Haaland or any City? Savinho maybe?
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show how fast things move in football and you know, especially FPL as well. And just to imagine him at, I think, 30% EO with a lot of dead teams as well is pretty insane, right? So if you think about Man City, they're bottom of the fixture ticker. There really isn't a defender worth it. Like all the high price point guys are not worth it because, you know, you could buy better players at cheaper with better fixtures such as Munoz. And, you know, Lewis, we know what the story with Lewis is. He just doesn't return in FPL based on this season. Mm-hmm. So that's defense eliminated. Midfield is like, where are you going to go? Maybe Foden, but super expensive. And, you know, at that price point, there's Bruno and Buemo, Gordon, a lot of better options at, you know, even $1 million, $2 million cheaper. Savio maybe, but, you know, minutes rotation risk with someone like Grealish can always happen. So I don't feel comfortable there. So it really comes down to Haaland. And when you think about Haaland at his price point, yes, he had, I think, 2 returns. And yes, let's say he's in form, but Isak is probably a better option at half his price point. And there's the Jimenez, there's Mateta, there's even Wood in 2 game weeks. There's plenty of options elsewhere where I would rather spread the funds. So personally, it just doesn't make sense. But maybe just to go differential, if, like, for example, you have 3 or 4 transfers or you're someone sitting on 4 or 5 transfers and you have a wild card in play around game week 30, 31, maybe you could go for the sake of going differential, but I just don't feel comfortable going Haaland.
Tom, no love for Haaland, I imagine?
No, not really. I don't have the money going around. Certainly don't have the transfers. The only thing is 29 is why you'd maybe look there.
Yeah.
Home to Brighton. You know, Liverpool could be off. Arsenal, Chelsea, don't really want to captain Palmer. If Newcastle go through, then Newcastle would be off. So the captaincy suddenly looks pretty stretched. But I mean, there's like 8 free transfers between there. So if that's the thing, that'll become a thing a bit later on, I think.
I have thought about that, like a Salah downgrade and an Isak to Haaland. But the only issue with that is if you wildcard in 30, which would be the case if you don't free hit in 29, you're going to lose an awful lot of value on arguably the 2 best players in the game at the moment. And suddenly to buy them back, you'll basically be spending $1 million more in game week 31 or game week 30 compared to what you sell them for a week earlier. So you're going to have to weigh that up and whether you think it's worthwhile. I kind of agree on Manchester City. Let's go back up to the top of the ticker then. Let's start with Crystal Palace. They are probably one of the more improved teams in the second half of the season. That is 2 games they have lost in their past 12 in the Premier League. Andy, you don't own any Crystal Palace at the moment. Top of your priority list?
Yeah, I certainly think so. I mean, just top of the fixture ticker, consistent team, and I think they've only blanked twice in the last 10. So with the tough fixtures that they've had, I was looking at whether they've been scoring more than 1 or 2 goals, and they've had a few games where they scored more than 2 goals. So I would assume that we've seen them last year, right? When Mateta, Olise, and Eze were ticking along, they were scoring in massive bunches, and I just think you need to play the fixtures here, and I'm probably 1 or 2 transfers behind, which is why I'm very high on Munoz as well as Sarr, and very interested in Mateta potentially as well, because he's going to be the highest threat in terms of goals, even though Sarr has the highest apparently XG and XJ right now, XG and XA right now. So if you don't have any, definitely I would invest, especially in the attack, as well as a very high attacking threat in Munoz as well.
Yeah, Munoz is top for XG amongst all defenders. I'm interested on the Sarr versus Eze debate. Like, I know Eze's the one who's got a golden assist in the past couple of games, but I'm still not sure he's worth the money over Sarr. Now, the gap is getting closer. I think it's only like 0.8 or 0.7 million now. So maybe that is worth the difference. But he's not on penalties, because we think Mateta is. Mateta took one earlier on in the season when everyone was on the pitch. He's unlikely to be on all set pieces because Will Hughes has been taking a fair number of corners over the past few weeks as well, which then leaves Eze's open play threat compared to Sarr's open play threat. And I don't think there is that much difference between the two. A couple of weeks ago, Sarr had done points, so Sarr was the one that we wanted. Now Eze has done it, so maybe that's Eze being slightly more appealing. But the only thing for me is they still feel a little bit cautious with Eze's minutes. He's always the one that comes off 80, 85. Sarr is playing 90 minutes pretty much every single week. Tom, you don't have either. If you were buying new, would it be Eze or would it be Sarr or Mateta?
I think Mateta would be the one that I want, because like every time I watch Palace and I watched the game back against Chelsea in full, and that was like Mateta was the one that was in all the positions, and then to be fair, Eze was the one as well. Like Eze caught my eye more than Sarr in terms of goal threat. You know, he obviously got the assist, and then he missed that massive chance that Munoz put on a plate for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you say, the value. I think from my point of view, it's kind of like, is there a chance to go Semenyo to Sarr at some point? Jackson to Mateta. I mean, it is this week, but then it's benching Rodgers for Sarr.
Everton, yeah, true.
Yeah, so I'm not convinced by that. But is Jackson to Mateta in 2 weeks when Palace have Brentford at home would be something I'm strongly considering. And then Munoz, I think if you need a defender at any point, I guess it's Munoz. Obviously, they are likely to blank in game week 29, but with 8 fixtures before then, I'm not sure you can factor that in too much.
Yeah, so what I've got up on screen now is some season data. So what you've got is XG per 90. You've also got the defense, so XGC, expected goals conceded per 90, and then you've also got it ranked. You've also got it for the last 6. So you can see where teams have got better and have got worse, and then it's color coded, right? So if they're in grey, there's not been a significant change. In green, it's been a good increase, or in terms of defense, it's got a bit of a decrease. So you've got Crystal Palace there, have had a bit of an increase, but they're still 14th for XG per 90 so far this season. Defensively, they're 10th as well. So it's okay. Like, the performance is one of those where eye test is different to stats, I think, with Crystal Palace. You watch them and I want a piece of their defense, I want a piece of their attack. But in terms of underlying data, you don't actually see quite the same. You're not seeing quite the level of improvement that maybe we've seen from a Newcastle, who are actually the most improved side, both defensively and offensively over the past 6 weeks. So, Andy, does the lack of data to back it up impact your decision, or do you just think the eye test is so strong on Palace?
I definitely think it's, I think that while we always say fixtures breed form, there is the potential we don't get what we expect or the results that we expect, certainly defensively or attack-wise. I agree with Tom. The one attacking-wise that stands out to me is Mateta, if your team, allows for it and the structure allows for it. So on that point, I'm actually debating a little bit on Munoz versus, for example, Robinson.
Yeah. Potentially
even Dalot, and how it's hard to ignore Lewis too, right? Just because yes, the next 4 is great, and then after that it's not great. But I mean, I had conviction.
As in Lewis Hall, just to be clear, not
Lewis Hall. Sorry, Lewis Hall. Yeah. Lewis Hall. Sorry. And last game week when I had all these plans in mind and sort of paths in my mind, and I was just like, what am I doing here? I need to bring in Gordon, because having Isaac is not enough. And you just watch the Newcastle game and you feel so confident that they're just going to do damage every single game for the foreseeable future. Hence why it was like one of those few transfers where it's like, okay, I'm going to get him in early and I have great confidence that this is such an excellent transfer. And so it's really hard to ignore Lewis Hall even for the next 4. So my debate is more whether it's not so much about whether Crystal Palace assets are good. They're definitely good, right? It's whether to go for Munoz, Robinson, Lewis, even Dalot, and then, in the midfield, can I battle against a Sarr versus someone like, who knows, like Murphy even. So that's where I'm at in terms of Crystal Palace assets. Yeah, they're good, but maybe you can pick someone else as well.
Yeah, Newcastle is really interesting. That debate, because a lot of us have a Gabriel and have a Trent, which only leaves really one defensive spot, which has Robinson in, it has a Lewis Hall in, it did have Kirkers in until their fixtures get a lot worse now, and then it's got Munoz in. Newcastle are the best team, most improved defensively, and most improved offensively over the past 6 weeks as well. And we saw with their fixture ticker that they are right at the top. Now, this probably leads us on quite well to talk about a little bit of chip strategy when we start to talk about Newcastle, because with the result that we got last night, they are expected if they do win or don't lose the second leg, if they go through in the EFL Cup to the final, they will blank in game week 29. Now, that is still 9 game weeks away, so whether you want to focus on that now or not is a little bit up to you. But it should have a little bit of an implication that if you're buying into Crystal Palace and you're buying into Newcastle, they are currently expected to blank in game week 29. So it kind of depends a little bit on your chip strategy. So just to discuss that in a little bit of detail, just to highlight in case you haven't seen, in game week 29 is the final of the EFL Cup. 2 fixtures will move from game week 29 to game week 33, most likely. Originally, it was predicted that Arsenal would beat Newcastle, but after the result last night, Newcastle, Crystal Palace, who play each other in game week 29, likely to move to game week 33. And the other one is Liverpool Spurs, which takes place tonight. And the winner of that, their fixture will move likely to game week 33 as well. So I suppose, Tom, we need to start thinking about chip strategy now, because if I want to buy Sarr, if I want to buy Munoz, if I want to buy Gordon, and I want to buy Lewis Hall, yes, it's 9 weeks away, but if Newcastle suddenly blank, and you've also got Liverpool blanking, you've also got Aston Villa, if you've got a Morgan Rogers blanking, you are starting to rack up the amount of players who don't have a fixture in that week.
Yeah. I mean, the flip side of that is game week 9 looks horrific. Like, are there any, like, it's kind of Man City Man United. Bumo. Yeah, I mean, if Arsenal Chelsea, as we expected, goes ahead, then I guess everyone's got Palmer and Gabriel, but that's a pretty horrific week. Is there any, like, talk, more than I do, is there any sort of free hitting chat in 29 or?
Yeah, so let's just get this predicted schedule up. So effectively, there's probably two opportunities. I think this year is going to be a week to free hit in a blank game week. If you want to get through and free hit in a double, it is possible, but I don't think there's enough doubles to play all your other attacking chips to then also want to play your free hit in it and trying to neglect a blank. Game week 34 is the biggest blank. So realistically, you need to be using, in my opinion, a free hit and a wild card, one to navigate 29 and one to navigate 34. So whether that's free hit 29 and wild card 35 just after the blank in game week 34, or you do something a little bit different where you dead end into 29 and wild card 30 and then free hit in game week 34. Realistically, I don't think there's that much scope to be free hitting in a double. Now you could do it because you could just get through 29 with the players that you've got if you don't have loads of Newcastle and Crystal Palace, and then just wildcard in 35. And then in theory, you don't massively need... wildcard 35, dead end into 34. But again, that's really difficult because teams who double in 33 that you'll want, well, most of them will likely blank in game week 34 because it's the biggest blank. So to have a team that's good in 33 and 34 without using a chip is really difficult. So I think free hitting in a blank is going to be most popular. It's just which way round you go.
Yeah.
Harry,
go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to say, so that 29 is, I suspect it will come down to how good Man City look. Because if Man City look really good, suddenly everyone's going to panic and want 3 City at home to Brighton for that week. Captain Haaland, obviously. But going back to your original question, sorry, about Newcastle, I wouldn't let it bother me yet. Maybe to get a third asset, it would. Like, for me, someone who's got Munoz, I'm probably not going to get Lewis Hall now.
Yeah.
But if you haven't got Gordon, I think I definitely wouldn't let you get put off by that. He's got Wolves, Bournemouth, Southampton, Fulham in the next 4. They're absolutely flying. Like, he's probably the third best midfielder right now.
Andy, go on.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, Harry, in your opinion, most likely game week 34 is the better game week to blank because there's a chance that probably 8 fixtures are called off.
No, well,
8 teams don't play. 4 fixtures
anywhere between 0 and 8 games being called off. In theory, if we get to the semi-final of the FA Cup and all 4 teams left are Premier League teams and they're all in different fixtures in that would be 4 games. Sorry, that should be 0 to 8 teams blanking, not 0 to 8 games. So we could get 4 matches maximum called off.
Right. And if that's the case, and you're able to navigate 34 with the free hit, most likely we'll have 3 or 4 Crystal Palace plus Newcastle assets, right? Going into 29, would you say?
Potentially.
I feel like that can be navigated from here till 29, no?
Yeah, but Liverpool and Liverpool and Villa are also expected to blank. And Liverpool are expected to have a double between now and then. So we're only going to get more Liverpool assets than we've got currently. And so if you get to 29 with like 2 Palace, 2 Newcastle, 3 Liverpool and Rodgers, for example, suddenly it looks really bad. Suddenly it looks really, really difficult. So
I think it's going to be one of those weeks where it's 8 players. Like, you tick off the highly owned players and then you just get on with it, to be honest. Like, but then, I mean, there's gonna be people taking hits for Calvert-Lewin and hits for Evan Nielsen, hits for Delap.
Just assume it's a low scoring game week.
Yeah, that doesn't particularly scare me. I think it's going to be Man City is the key question, I think.
Well, exactly. So that's where the free hit might be good because you think, well, I can free hit, I can get Haaland and not lose value on Salah and not lose value on Isak. And free hit and go with Haaland and go with Savio for that one fixture at home to Brighton. So it's just something worth starting to consider, basically, if you are making transfers and you're buying Newcastle and you're buying Palace, who look like the 2 teams to buy at the moment, that with the result last night, they may well blank in game week 29. And what does that do for your chip strategy? You don't need to decide your chip strategy right now, but it's just something to be slightly cautious of. The transfers you're making now, we're into season where we need to be thinking about our chips, basically, is where we're at.
Yeah.
Cool. One final thing, well, actually, the next thing to cover is, Andy, we wanted to have a little bit of a look at teams that have a bit of a fixture swing coming up over the next few weeks. So what we've got here is that same fixture ticker we were looking at, but 21 to 25 and then 25 to 29. So you do have 25 being included in both of those. Game week 29 is included at the moment just because we don't have a confirmed blank for those yet. But there are a few teams who are low in one and high in the other, and high in one and low in the other.
Yeah.
The top two with fixture swings coming up are Brentford and Bournemouth. So they're actually both in the bottom four for the next 5 weeks. But from game week 25 to 29, they are the top two. Crystal Palace, interestingly, stay in the top three for both of them. Whereas you maybe have Newcastle really good for the next four, but drop off from game week 25 onwards. So maybe that says to me that actually a Munoz is a better buy than a Lewis Hall, because a Munoz is a buy for 9 weeks, whereas Lewis Hall maybe is only a buy for 5 weeks. And maybe you see the same with the midfielders as well.
Yeah. I think Brentford being top from 25 to 28 with a fixture in 29 makes Mbeumo a very sexy hold almost. If maybe not a buy, but certainly a hold, I would say. Crystal Palace, yeah. Bournemouth, I mean, where would you go, Semenyo?
You're probably
and
not.
Then I guess you could
if you've got a Kirkes or something, it might be worth holding him. If you've got a Howson, you might be worth holding.
Yeah, I think that what this does is to show that there aren't really huge swings from 25 onwards, except maybe one or two. Maybe Arsenal is someone you might want to invest in if they get knocked out by, I think, 24, 25, right? So maybe you could just start hopping off those Newcastle assets in 25, navigate 29, and then have all your chips left to be played from 30 onwards. It could be a strategy. And if what Tom said is right, and it really is not looking great except Man City in 29, then missing one or two players in 29 with a good fixture won't be so detrimental, if you know what I mean.
As FPL Victoria's Secret says, Gordon to Mbeumo in 25 looks like the most obvious transfer if you've got Gordon, because in the second fixture ticker we've got here, Newcastle walk into potentially City, Forest, Liverpool, away at West Ham, and then a potential blank. Right, that would be their 5 fixtures. So it does feel like if that blank does play in 29 and you're not gonna free hit that week, 25, moving them to someone like a Brentford who walk into West Ham away, Leicester away, Everton at home, Villa at home, Bournemouth away, is fantastic. If you've gone Mateta, right? Going Mateta to Visa is another transfer. If you've gone Flecken, then I suppose if you've gone a Newcastle defender, you could move one to Munoz, you could move it to someone else as well. So, yeah. Crystal Palace maybe slightly better long term, but Newcastle probably the most informed team for the next 4 fixtures, which Wolves at home, Bournemouth at home, Southampton away, Fulham at home. You just can't look past how good those are, right?
Would you buy Hall or Munoz this week? I think looking at this table, these two tables makes me think Munoz is a slightly better pick that will save you a transfer. Possibly.
It would save you a transfer. I agree. The only thing is,
and he's so due a goal.
He is so due a goal. Do we think that, over the past 6 weeks, Newcastle are the second best attack in the league and the second best defense in the league, though? Is there a possibility that Lewis Hall pays off the extra transfer between now and then? But as you say, Munoz is so due, top for XG so far this season amongst all defenders. I think I would buy Munoz.
What about Munoz versus Robinson though? Let's say you're trying to not free hit in 29.
Yeah. Let me get the next fixtures up again.
Fulham's fixtures are right up there too.
Fulham for the next 5 are second, and then they do drop a little bit. I mean, in game week 29, they have Spurs at home, which is okay. They've got some decent fixtures. Would I go Robinson or would I go Munoz? The only thing with Robinson, I don't think that back 5 is going to stick. I don't think they're going to keep it up because they just lacked that creativity against Ipswich with Robinson and Castagna at wing backs. It doesn't mean he's a bad pick, but he's definitely better when they're playing that back 5 and he's playing sort of left wing, left forward, and he has goal threat, he has assist threat. So I think I would still go Munoz, but he'll still be good. He still will be a good pick. But, I mean, he's up to what? Over 5 million now? So there is a bit of price difference. I
He is a
probably
bit
would
more
go
expensive.
Munoz out of the two, but I don't think there's that much in it.
Do you think he's worth 1 million more than Castagna?
No.
No.
But again, when they play the back five, it's not quite the same on both sides. Like, Robinson is more advanced than Castagna is. So there is more threat. But I just don't... if I was buying new, I would be buying Castagna.
Yeah.
But I would probably expect that to go wrong. But I would buy Castagna. It's one of those that, like, I just can't see myself paying like 1 million more for Robinson over Castagna. But I can see every week between now and then Robinson being close to return and Castagna just not getting enough. But I would still buy Castagna.
Yeah.
Cool. So, anything else you guys want to have a look at? What time is it? We've been live for 45 minutes. Anything else you guys particularly want to discuss? Any teams that we've left out? I suppose the other thing is Manchester United, right? So they are 4th in the fixture ticker for the next 5 weeks. And they don't drop that much when you look until game week 29. And actually, interestingly, they have Leicester away in game week 29. So that's one of the fixtures that you might want a piece of. So like I've got Bruno and Ahmad. And the chances are I'm just going to have to hold them now. Because once we get to 29, having that will be a nice thing to have in my team. You don't own... Do either of you own Bruno? No. Is there any desire, like where does Bruno rank compared to a Gordon, compared to a Mbermo, compared to an Eze, if you're looking to buy? And where does Ahmad, I suppose, rank as well?
Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
I think Ahmad is the slightly easier one because he, at any point, you can swap. You know, you could wait till 29, check he's still in the team, and then swap Rodgers, who I believe could blank. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but...
No, he is, Liverpool, Villa.
Yeah. Or Enzo, whenever you get sick of Enzo, that's probably 2 weeks for Man City. You go to Ahmad.
I'm sick of Enzo now. Can I sell him now? I already got Ahmad.
But yeah, I think Ahmad's the easy one and the one you can get at any point. But Bruno is, you have to plan for. I mean, obviously all the banter around Man United, but he still gets points. That's just a fact. He's still going to get points. So yeah, if you're not free hitting, he's probably going to be one of those need players in game week 29, you would think.
Yeah.
Leicester away, and potentially a good captain if Man City is still inconsistent. So definitely in the plans, like Jackson, bit of Jackson money, maybe Trent money, something like that. But I would buy Gordon this week if you need a midfielder for sure.
Gordon over Bruno if you had the money.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think I'd probably agree. But just before we continue, I haven't done a single plug. So if you haven't liked the stream already, please make sure you do. Drop subscribe in the chat as well. And all of these Burning Questions podcasts are sponsored by Fantasy EFL. So if you are a fan of the championship and want to start playing a little bit more fantasy every single week, you can completely change your team. You have basically a free hit. You can pick players from all of the football leagues. So go and check that out. If you're a fan of some of the lower leagues of English football, you can check it out. Start picking your team every single week. Tom, have you been playing it over Christmas?
I haven't, no, but everyone at work has. I don't have the time.
I can always see the scout chats talking about their AFL teams. I can always see it. There's a lot of.
It was a triple game week.
Yeah,
it was a triple game week on Boxing Day, so that was quite fun. But there's also we've got a podcast and lots of content on the site as well. So do check that out if you're interested. It's not just Championship as well, League One and League Two.
Yes, cool. Going back. In the name of the show, Burning Questions, I want to ask a couple of questions about specific community burning questions. The first one is for the team who are top of the attacking data and second in the defensive data, particularly looking at the defense, is Liverpool. So predicted to have a double in game week 24 or game week 25. Currently, there is only one name I think you definitely need to have in your team, and that is Mo Salah. Trent's performance at the weekend was concerning with Conor Bradley back. Gakpo continues to look good. You've got Luis Diaz only played 59 minutes. How do you feel on Liverpool? Do you think there's more assets than just Salah? Do you think... Let's start with Trent. Let's go Trent first before we go to the attack. Andy, do you have concerns on Trent now, or is it an overreaction? And I'm guessing we can't sell before a potential double. even though I don't think he plays both in the double.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not a sell this week at all. I'm not as concerned as most people. To be honest, it was an atrocious performance, right? And I think that Trent has always, sorry, Liverpool fans, but been not the best defensively. He's just so good attacking wise, and that's why Slot used him very well this year. And potentially his mind's on Real Madrid. I think I read a interesting little quote or article recently where you remember Francesco Totti was saying the biggest regret he ever made was not going to Real Madrid from Roma. And when Real Madrid keep call, you are certainly interested. So I do see that scenario in the summer potentially, probably not in this fixture transfer window at all. So I just think it's one bad performance. You have him for Nottingham Forest. Hopefully he does well. And if you have to assess down the line, he's a great cash cow. So I wouldn't panic in terms of Trent and just keep hold on to him.
Konate back at a much cheaper price. If you didn't own Trent, would you buy new though, Andy?
Probably not this game week. I think Nottingham Forest are, pretty solid defensively and can always get that Chris Wood goal. So maybe not the best entry point this week, but I mean, it's tough to say, right? Like off that Man United performance, you would obviously say no, but he also had a 15-pointer just like 2 or 3 game weeks ago, right? So I don't know. I'll flip the question to you, Harry. What do you think?
If I was buying new, I'd buy Konate. Konate is the one I wanted early on in the season. He's by far the cheapest. He's going to play every game as long as he's fully fit. That's the only concern with him, is he's got a lot of games to play when he's just come back from an injury, and we know his injury record isn't great, but Konate is top for me at his price when everyone is available. Tom, your thoughts on the defense?
I've got Van Dijk. Every week I'm slightly tempted to move to Trent. He probably does outscore him by 4 points in, say, like the next 10 weeks, but
that's it.
Well, no, as in that would be the hit. Sorry, so that would make it worthwhile. But yeah, Konate is interesting. Like he'd probably be the way you double up ahead of a double. I don't think anyone's having Van Dijk and Trent, but I definitely wouldn't be adverse to adding Konate like for Dunk in a couple of weeks. That Ipswich at home game in 23 is probably the entry point ahead of the double. And then I guess, Alisson, like everyone's on, sorry, not everyone, lots of people on Raya. That would be an easy swap as well.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't the double, I wouldn't be considering a double up. But I don't know if that says I shouldn't, but it'd be Konate.
I suppose the only thing is again, if you add a doubler and they blank in 29, they still have the same number of fixtures between now and game week 30 as everyone else, if that's the way it falls, is the only potential thing to think about. But you have transfers for this sort of thing, right?
I mean, just to add my 2 cents, there's that double in 24, 25, which is very appealing, hence why I have double Everton defense. That's a joke, by the way. But it's the trade-off, right? It's like, I just think there's plenty of other fine options that can cover for having double Liverpool defense, even though their XGC is so high. So, when you have Gabriel, when you have a Trent already, and then all these options, Munoz, Lewis Hall, whoever it may be, just doesn't feel necessary, if you know what I mean.
Arsenal playing Man City, though, if that double game week is in 24 and you say to people you've got a double Arsenal defense against Man City, or you can have Liverpool with a double, I think it'd be quite tempting to swap Raya
to Alisson. Yeah. Who do West Ham play in 24?
They play Chelsea away.
So I'm not playing Fabianski either.
Let's talk about Gakpo, and then while we're talking about Gakpo, I really want to discuss the forwards, because actually I think there's 5 or 6 very decent forward options. So I just want to know where you guys are at with that.
Yeah, Gakpo is really interesting. The minutes are there. I think that's 9 starts in a row for him now. But I can't help but think Jota's back. Diaz is there. Darwin's not really a threat, unless there's a really straightforward fixture where they need to rotate. The thing is, at the game of the weekend against Man United, from the commentary, he was the one coming off when Diaz came off, but then he scored. So they decided to take Diaz off. If Gakpo hadn't finished that chance and he'd have been taken off at 59 minutes, suddenly we think completely differently about the state of him as a pick. I still worry, he's not on penalties. Out of all the forwards we're looking at, he is the lowest expected minutes, basically. Like, it's just too much of a... Like, do we think he's definitely going to play both in the double? There's only 3 players that we'd pick that I think are definitely going to play both in the double, and that is Alisson, Van Dijk, and Salah. So,
but at the moment, he has to be like, you have to say he might, like he should. If he started 9 games in a row, and Liverpool, they're not going to be messing around, I don't think.
No. But
they're tricky. Like, Merseyside Derby is going to play strongest team for sure.
Yeah.
And then it's Bournemouth away and Wolves at home. Like, Bournemouth away is fairly tricky. I don't know. I would go to Gakpo, I think. I wouldn't... Like, Jackson to Gakpo in game week 23, when Liverpool have Ipswich and Chelsea have Man City, could be tempting.
It's possible. What do you think, Andy? Is Gakpo clearer of Luis Diaz as well?
Yes. I think I'm keeping my options open for a potential move into him before the double, for example.
Yeah.
Because I see 23, maybe 20. Yeah, 23 as a good entry point for someone like even a Wood or a Jackson, even or Jackson out to like a Mateta even. So potentially Gakpo comes into the fray for me, but what it feels. First of all, he started the last 8 game weeks, I believe, and yes, he might potentially get the benching. Yes, his minutes aren't the longest. I agree with that, Harry. But it does feel like sort of the World Cup Gakpo confidence level type of thing, and he looks fantastic. He's taking shots from outside the box. He looks great on the ball, and when you think about Salah being the main man right now, it feels like Batman and Robin and Salah and Gakpo up top. So I'm just keeping my eyes option and potentially seeing it as a short-term differential if necessary, if I see it as a opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, from 23 onwards, Liverpool have Ipswich at home. They also have Wolves at home. They also have Southampton at home in 3 of the next 6. So there are really nice games there for him. We do also get to Champions League games in and about game week 28 as well, but that's further down the line. Yeah, many of those weeks we started 9 in a row, there hasn't been a Diogo Jota available. I do think Gakpo, Diaz, Salah is the first choice front 3, but there's nothing to say that for the odd game like Ipswich at home, like, could that change? But like, it's not impossible. But the double does make it appealing. I was just checking. So my potential transfers further down the line is selling Jackson to upgrade Enzo to Mbeumo. And very sadly, I am just short of Gakpo in place of Jackson. I'm 0.3 million short of those transfers, which would have been interesting. But
so you could go Mateta.
I could go Mateta, but I don't think I'm going to go either of those. I may well go for a double on Brentford and go with Visa. I just really like his underlying data is incredible. The only thing is he doesn't have penalties compared to those other forwards. But from 23 onwards, Palace, Spurs, West Ham, Leicester, Everton, Villa, and then plays in the blank.
Wow. Wisa is an option I didn't even consider, but
he had 5.
Someone.
So 11 Brentford created 11 big chances against Southampton at the weekend. Visa had 5 of them.
Yeah. And I feel like he just has these 2-goal games here and out throughout the season. So
there are just
I love
games where Brentford will just score 3 or 4 goals.
Exactly.
It is Southampton.
Do you have Chris Wood, Harry?
No.
Why Visa over Wood?
Wisa's a great pick, I feel. Yeah, even I could see it over Wood, certainly.
Wood on penalties, though, plays 29.
Yeah, potentially. But I think the fixtures are worse for Forest. Like, yeah, they've got Southampton at home next week, which is great. But realistically, I don't need them until 23 because I'm not selling Jackson at home to Wolves next week, I don't think. Unless I went to Wood for 1 week before potentially. I mean, I could hold, but like Bournemouth away, Brighton at home, Fulham away, Newcastle away, Arsenal, City. Like, it's hard for Wood. That should not be said on a podcast, but anyway.
I didn't even notice it.
The fixtures are just much better for Brentford.
I don't know about that. Crystal Palace fixtures look nice.
Oh, well, compared to Mateta, it's different, but compared to Forest.
Oh, Forest, yeah.
Are you like eyeing up a 30 wild card if you're kind of building with Brentford? And
I mean, my current plan is to dead end into 29 on wildcard 30 is the current plan.
And bench boost 33.
Well, it may
with
well
Palace
be
and Newcastle.
Bench boost 33, yeah. Because then I can wildcard in 30 and buy Newcastle and Palace players, which I'm not particularly buying at the moment. But I haven't fully decided. The thing is, I'm not buying any of them this week. So I mean, let's wrap it off by talking about our teams, and we'll talk in turn about them and a bit of future thought process as well. So I'll go first because we're talking about it. So the issue I've got is I like Newcastle and I like Palace, right? But I'm not buying them this week because I've got Raya in goal. I've got Munoz, Gabriel, Trent, Salah, Palmer, and then a double up on United at home to Southampton in Fernandes and Ahmad, Jackson, João Pedro, and Isak. So realistically, I'm rolling my transfer this week. I don't need to do anything. Like, I could buy Gordon for Enzo, but I'd have to sell Jackson. Like, I could do Jackson to Chris Wood and Enzo to Gordon this week. That's possible. I just don't think that... Is Gordon better than Jackson this week? It's close. And then
yes, by a little bit.
I'm surprised to hear you say that. I
just think Gordon's so good. Like, Gordon just feels like guaranteed goals right now.
Yeah. I mean, it would then give me Wood at home to Southampton next week. It's something I've considered. And playing a 3-5-2, get rid of Enzo. That's what I've considered. The other thing is I roll my transfer for the next couple and I do Jackson to like Visa and Enzo to Mbermo for that Palace away and then Spurs at home in 23 and 24. I don't have that many blankers and it would give me 4 or 5 transfers. I could get a third Liverpool if I wanted it to. I could easily navigate through 29 with the transfers that I've got. So
yeah,
do I force in Gordon for the next 4 and then sell him to Mbermo, or do I roll the transfers and keep them stored up for later?
Yeah, Harry, I think this is a roll. I mean, I would confidently, like, let's say it's kind of Bruno Fernandes versus Gordon, right?
Well, no, it's Jackson versus Gordon.
Okay, because you can 2 transfer and upgrade Enzo.
I got 3 transfers.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Right, interesting. But even with that, you just don't sell Jackson right now. I mean, the next 2 fixtures, I don't think he's a buy, definitely, but I feel like he could have had 2 or 3 goals this past game week. It's just annoying Jackson type finishing, especially because, that's how inconsistent he is. I know Tom's going to argue differently, but so maybe you just have to keep him for the next 2 and hopefully he converts those chances because the chances are definitely coming.
Does it impact you if I tell you that Gordon has exactly the same fixtures in the next 2 as Jackson does? So they both...
I agree with Tom too. I mean, like, if you have 2 free transfers and you can make that move, it's not a terrible decision. Yeah.
I think if you could swap it, like, if they were the same position, I think Gordon outscores Jackson. But in Harry's case, he's selling Jackson probably in 2 weeks anyway, so it's a 2-week thing. In which case, it's pretty hard to call. I think.
But then, Jackson, I suppose the question is like, is Gordon better than Jackson this week? Maybe slightly. Is Chris Wood better than Jackson next week? Because I would then have Wood for Southampton at home, and Gordon, in theory, I'd play instead of playing either Enzo or Ahmad next week. So it does make my team better next week as well, because I'd have Chris Wood at home to Southampton and Gordon at home to Bournemouth instead of Jackson at home to Wolves and probably Ahmad at home to Brighton. So, I mean, yeah.
The more you say that, to be honest, I'd probably do those moves. Southampton, as you said, just conceded 5 big chances to Vissa.
Yeah.
Like, The more you say that, I probably would.
Yeah.
Jackson feels like he could get 9 points, or it's a 60-minute sub to Mark Gu. But
yeah, I think I agree with Tom. The more you talk about it, you're in a position of luxury, and
you're improving your team for 2 weeks, basically.
Yeah, Chris Wood is the best striker in the world right now. So,
but then just to throw this back at you is it needed this week? Like, is Gordon that much better than Jackson this week to do it this week?
I mean, it's only this week. Yeah, no, it's only this week. The entry point for Gordon has to be now.
But I could do it next week and get Gordon in still and go to Chris Wood when he actually has the Southampton at home fixture.
Yeah, but then Newcastle's fixtures turn from 20. I guess they have City in 25. So don't you want to sort of milk the next 4?
But the only difference to my lineup this week, if I make those transfers, is Jackson versus Gordon this week.
But Jackson versus Gordon this week, and then next week is Wood against.
Yeah, so next week, but I could do the transfers next week. So like this week, it is a straight shootout between Jackson and Gordon.
But next week is probably Jackson's better fixture, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'd rather Chris Wood probably. Or would I?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. He just keeps scoring. I loved owning him at the start of the season, but now it's paining me. It's paining me not having him. So that's,
and you've got 3 free transfers, right? So you could do this week and then roll next week, and you're back up to
3.
3. I would do those 2 moves, in my opinion.
Okay. Interesting. Right. Who wants to go next? Let's put Tom's team up on screen. How many transfers do you have, Tom? You're not starting triple Chelsea. Is this your team? No, this is Andy's team.
Unfortunately, I don't have Enzo.
Oh yeah, the Enzo spot looks horrendous, but I put it. Okay, so first of all, what's going on here is I have the exact funds to go Timber to Munoz and Enzo to Sar. So I only have one transfer, so that would be for a hit. And I've been on the FPL statistics price changes daily just to make sure, I don't get priced out of these moves. So that's really on my radar right now. I think I might go for that hit and just kind of try to save transfers to the next few is the idea here. I could play Rodgers this week and just do Timber to Munoz, or even just play Timber and roll the transfer, for example. So that's where I'm at. And captaincy is where I'm sort of leaning on Isak right now. So yeah, so lots to discuss and lots to think about. But
do you have one transfer? Sorry,
yeah.
I only have one transfer, and I have very little value. So this is what I mean. I'm a few transfers behind. But let's say I take this hit for these 2 Crystal Palace assets. I think I'll be sitting on this team for a few game weeks and looking pretty decent. So the idea is to triple captain in 24-25 even. Go ahead.
I think a Timber to Munoz, is a good move. I then it's a question of, do you hit Enzo to Sar? I'm not sure that's worth 4 points this week, to be honest.
And just start Rodgers.
Yeah, I would play Rodgers over Enzo. I also think, Harry, I don't know if you agree, but like if Lavia plays half an hour against Morecambe, could start against Bournemouth. Enzo plays higher.
Yeah.
Caicedo right back.
I would play Rodgers over Enzo regardless now.
Yeah, probably, yeah. But I wouldn't hit Sar. I didn't. But I would do Timber to Munoz, I think.
Yeah, it's just depends on the price changes, though. If I need to, I must, if he's going to move or someone's going to come down, I have to do it. Yeah. I mean, likely there's no changes this week. But yeah. But I mean, let's talk about captaincy a little bit because
yeah,
all on different players.
So here's the thing, right? So Forest, Salah's playing Forest. Forest actually, I have some stats here. 3rd in the league, obviously, and 19th in the league in ball possession. And after Everton's 20th in ball possession. So it just goes to show they don't give a shit about the ball. Like, they don't hold the ball at all. And, which goes to show how efficient they are. Their goal difference is +7. And, Arsenal's top of, goals conceded, 16, Liverpool 17, and then Nottingham Forest 19, 3rd goals conceded. So just an extremely elite defense this year. And their scoring rate is around mid-table, so 10th in the league. So, and Chris Wood hogs the goals. So what this is basically a unstoppable force in Liverpool meets an immovable object in Nottingham Forest. So honestly, it's hard to predict, right? But if I was to give my 2 cents, I would assume that there's going to be less than, let's say, 1 or 2 goals, just because of how, they start in a back 4 and then they convert to like a back 5 and sort of play a back 3 at times as well. So Nuno has always been known for his defensive like coaching ability and then counter-attacking. So are we crazy to say this is the week to go against Salah, Tom?
I mean, we'll come to my team, but I'm going to captain Palmer, basically. Would I recommend anyone to do that? No. But that's partly because of my rank, partly because I'm going to the game, and partly because Palmer under the lights, Stamford Bridge, has got some big... It just feels like a game that I think we might win quite well. And I think if you say which team's going to score 3 goals, I think it's probably Chelsea over Liverpool.
I mean,
but you like Isak.
Before we get to the Isak and the Palmer, the more important thing is, even if Isak and Palmer do well, if Salah is going to do well, there's no point at captaining against him. How confident are you feeling that potentially we can lock up? I'm Team Nottingham Forest here. We can lock up Salah.
No one can lock up Salah.
But I mean, the flip, like you can obviously say your narrative. Like Palmer's outscored Salah twice in the last 4 weeks. It's not impossible.
Yeah.
Like Isak is obviously on a roll. I think Palmer probably has a higher ceiling than Isak. Would you agree with that, Harry?
My only thing with Isak, right, and I'm creating a narrative that suits my agenda, I'm fully aware of that, but Isak came off last night and Eddie Howe said he had a slight tight hamstring, right? What's to say that he doesn't come off early against Wolves?
I mean, not a lot, but if he comes off early, he's probably scored.
Yeah.
I think that's one of those where I wouldn't let that pay into your thinking, to be honest. That is 8 days away.
Yeah. I think all 3 of them are really close. I've been burnt too much by Chelsea that it's not going to be on Palmer, I don't think.
How about Bruno, Harry?
I've got double United. That is more than enough United players for me. There's no way I'm putting the captaincy armband anywhere near either of them.
But do you think, like Southampton, they've just conceded 11 big chances. Do you think Bruno is a better captain than Palmer and Isak?
No, because we also saw performances recently from United that have struggled to break down teams that they should be breaking down.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, if I told you one of these 3 teams in Chelsea, Liverpool, Newcastle and United just put up a dreadful performance and didn't do what we expected them to, United would be top of your list for that prediction.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just Southampton are like absolutely dire, but yeah.
The new manager just made an awful lot of difference.
That's Ugo Chukwu doing his business there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you set on Isak then, Andy?
No, I'm not set on who I'm going to captain, but it could be Palmer. Fine, but my thing is, how confident are we that Salah does less than 1 goal? And Nottingham Forest are elite defense this year. They're elite defense in form.
I'm going to say it. He's got to blank at some point.
Yeah,
exactly right.
But how many
this
chances?
Is the week.
If Strand Larsen had finished his chances, we wouldn't be saying the same thing. Wolves had so many chances on Monday night.
My friend, at 2 million rank, I need to find points. So I'm just forcing this narrative into my brain.
Narrative to everyone captain Salah.
I do think if I was 100k right now, I would captain Salah. I think Salah is probably the best shout. But if you're looking ahead and like at my rank, and I'm probably biased, and I'm going to the game, and regardless, like, do I care about FPL as much as Harry? Probably slightly not. So I'm happy to go to the game to watch my captain play football. And that might be the bad attitude.
See,
but
that stresses me out because I'd rather just be able to enjoy the game and not have to think about my FPL team as well.
I mean,
that's true. But if Palmer scores and, you're sitting there, it always feels good. But
yeah, when Jackson blanks again and I've got him in my team and we don't win, it's just like, great. What a fantastic evening this has been.
It's good we're all if we all go for 3 different players, I think that would be cool.
I bet we don't go for 3 different players.
I will captain Palmer, I can tell you that.
Okay, well, we've got one different because I'm not captaining Palmer.
Andy, you'll message me next Tuesday and say, is Palmer a good captain? I'll say yes, and you'll do it.
I mean, first of all, Tom, you need to change your Twitter handle to FPL Palmer or Palmaldo or whatever, because your love for him is incredible. I respect that, like me and Son. And yeah, I'm very likely not to captain Salah, like 80-90% there. You know, I think this is the week, and I'm going on a tangent here, both you guys, because 2 game weeks ago I captained Palmer over Salah, and if I had captained Salah that week, I would have shot up the ranks, like probably at least 500,000 places. So even with a low rank, you know, captaining Salah is fine. I just think I believe in this Nottingham Forest team and their defense, and this is the week. This is the week that Salah goes on vacation.
I agree, and I also look at the fixtures. I'm going to captain Salah. I mean, yeah, it was probably going to blow up in our faces.
All right, we got to stop it.
We'll be here next week.
I'm going to captain Salah for like 7 of the next 8 weeks. So I just think this week I'm going to take that chance, you know?
Yeah, me too.
Out of interest, does who else you have in your team impact your decision? Because, for example, like if you've already got, like in this situation, if I go with double Chelsea, does that impact me to not captain Palmer? If I've got Isak and Gordon, does that mean I'm less likely to captain Isak? If you've just got Salah, does it mean you're more likely to captain Salah? It's just a general question. Like, does who else you own? Because example, like if you're starting triple Chelsea, like the thought of captaining Palmer on top of that feels a lot, but it doesn't impact it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, quadruple Chelsea attack when you put it like that. But I think at the end of the day, you pick the player you think scores the most points, or you'd have a chance.
Yeah,
I think you got to have some fun in life, you know. You'll say points are fun, and that's fair enough.
Points are fun. Exactly.
Oh yeah, Harry's the most fun person differential wise.
I'm not saying people should do it, but I'm going to do it. Yeah, my team for the podcast: Raya, Van Dijk, Munoz, Gabriel, Salah as my vice captain, Palmer captain, Gordon, Rodgers, João Pedro, Jackson, Isak. Pretty straightforward role, I think. I got 1.6 in the bank, so I could get Sarr or Mateta for João Pedro or Semenyo, but I think that's kind of, I'd be selling a good player to get another good player, and I'd rather build up some transfers. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, team looks great.
Yeah, I think it's be straightforward.
Yeah, good role.
I wouldn't be selling João Pedro.
No, it's just then, like, I guess if I want a new striker, I have to sell someone.
Yeah, Jackson.
But yeah, 2 weeks. I'm not going to sell Jackson in the next 2 weeks. And yeah, in the chat, as someone saying, Semenyo probably will score at Stamford Bridge, but. Yeah. I'm not gonna. Would you? Do you think Everton's defense is? Would you definitely play Rodgers over Semenyo?
Yeah.
Would you buy Sarr for Semenyo?
If you're buying Sarr for Semenyo, you need to free hit 29 because you've got Gordon, Isak, Munoz, Sarr, Salah, Van Dijk, Rodgers. That's over half your team already blanking in 29. Yes, we've got transfers, but
yeah.
So I think you need to decide you need to have a thought process on that before you start buying more Palace players.
I would be a little cautious about selling João Pedro because actually from 26 all the way to 32, besides 29 Man City, Brighton have very, very good fixtures. So he's just such a good enabler, right, at his price point, and he's ticking along. He's getting you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it would be Sarr, but as Harry says, that kind of 29 looks horrific for me, to be honest.
Would you, like, out of interest, would you do Semenyo to Ahmad?
That hasn't crossed my mind, but that is something that I'll take away because that is a good shout. I'll have to look at the rotation I get with Rodgers, João Pedro, and Ahmad for the next few weeks. But yeah, as you say, 29, that would probably be, that's like the other way to Sarr. That takes me more to 29. strategically. So yeah, I'll consider that. I'll look at the rotation between Rodgers, João Pedro.
Yeah.
Frees up more money as well, actually.
Cool. Well, that is going to be all for this episode of Burning Questions. There are, of course, cup games tonight and over the weekend. So do your best to hold your transfers as best you can. I'm going to go and have a look at buying Chris Wood back because I feel like my season fell apart when I sold Chris Wood. And
Andy, imagine falling apart in the top 100k. It would be all right.
I'm not in the top 100k. That's why it fell apart.
Sack him.
Exactly.
No. It's all jokes, but we respect you as a manager, Harry.
Thanks. Andy, thank you very much for coming back on. Hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, always. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully more green arrows. And let's see how this game week turns out.
Tom, thank you. We'll be back.
Yeah.
Should be back next
everyone.
Wednesday. That will be after game week 21 has started, but when there's lots of games still to
We'll
play.
have the Salah Palmer though. So
Are they both on Tuesday night?
yes.
Oh dear. All right. We'll see if I turn up for that.
And the signal's rubbish at Stamford Bridge, so I won't know the Salah. I won't know what Salah's doing.
Yeah, it's enough to load like notifications. They're just a bit delayed.
Well, you must be in the posh seats.
No, it's okay. It just takes time, and suddenly they all load at once, and then you don't get anything for 10 minutes. Anyway,
Harry, just open up to the idea of not captaining Salah. Just consider it a bit.
Andy, let's keep the points to ourselves.
let me think about
Fine,
it.
but
No. That was good. All right. We are going to wrap it up there. Thank you all very much for joining. Please do drop a like and subscribe before you go. If you're on podcast, please do rate us 5-star, and we will see you all again next week.
Thank you, guys.